The clear blue sky over North America darkened as the massive Ultharian warship moved between Earth and the sun. People on the ground pointed up, many taking pictures with their phones. News channels quickly switched to live coverage. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, 5 miles long with a dark metal hull covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move. In the command center of the United Earth Defense Force, Admiral Greg Wilson sat at his desk sipping coffee from his favorite mug. The mug had a picture of an alien and said, "I don't believe in humans." He had bought it as a joke years ago. Now it seemed a bit less funny. "Sir, the alien ship is now in stable orbit," said Lieutenant Jane Collins. She looked nervous but kept her voice steady. "They're scanning us, but our shields are holding." Greg nodded and put down his mug. "Any attempts at communication?" "Not yet, sir," Jane replied, checking her screens. "But our translation software is ready." The Ultharian Empire had conquered 37 star systems without much fighting. They used fear to make planets give up. They would show up with their biggest ships, make scary threats, and most planets would surrender right away. It usually worked very well. Captain Zorthax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Emperor's Fist. He was tall, with gray skin, 4 yellow eyes, and sharp teeth that showed. When he spoke, he wore the black and gold uniform of an Imperial fleet commander. Medals covered his chest, each one for a world that had surrendered to him. "Begin the standard intimidation protocol," Zorthax ordered. His deep voice made the smaller officers on the bridge stand straighter. "Show these primitives the might of the Empire." On the main screen in the Earth Defense Headquarters, the face of an alien appeared. The room went quiet, the first official contact with alien life, and it looked angry. "People of Earth," Zorthax began, his voice translated into English. I am Captain Zorthax of the Ultharian Empire, masters of 37 worlds and rightful rulers of this galactic sector. Your planet now falls under our protection and rule." Greg Wilson raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Around him, his officers watched carefully. Zorthax continued, his voice growing louder. "Resistance is pointless. Our ship carries weapons that can turn your cities to ash. We can boil your oceans. We can crack your planet like an egg." He paused for effect. "The Great Emperor demands your immediate surrender. Your leaders have 1 hour to agree, or we will demonstrate our power on one of your major cities." The alien's speech went on for several minutes, describing horrible weapons and painful deaths that awaited anyone who fought back. He showed videos of other planets burning, of alien armies marching through strange cities, of creatures that looked nothing like humans bowing before Ultharian officers. But something unexpected happened in the Earth Command Center. General Susan Miller, a tough woman who had seen 3 wars, started to smile. Then she chuckled. Then she laughed out loud, covering her mouth with her hand. The laughter spread. Soon, most of the humans in the room were laughing. Susan actually wiped tears from her eyes. On the Ultharian ship, Zorthax stopped talking. This had never happened before. He looked at his second-in-command, who seemed equally confused. "Are they laughing?" Zorthax asked, not quite believing it. Greg Wilson stood up, still grinning. "Captain Zorthax, I'm Admiral Greg Wilson of Earth. I'm sorry for our reaction. We don't mean to be rude. It's just that..." He paused, trying to find the right words. "Well, you're not the first to try this approach." "What do you mean?" Zorthax demanded, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. "Humans have been imagining alien invasions for hundreds of years," Greg explained. "We've made thousands of movies, books, and games about it. Your speech was actually very similar to the one in Galaxy Conquest 3. That was a popular movie. About 10 years ago." Susan Miller stepped forward. "What my colleague is trying to say is that we're not impressed by threats. Also, I should mention that we've been pointing 19 orbital defense platforms at your ship since you arrived." "Impossible," Zorthax shouted. "Our scouts reported that you barely have space travel. You're a primitive species." "Your scouts need better equipment," Greg said with a shrug. "We keep our best technology hidden. We've had some bad experiences with visitors in the past." Zorthax turned to his tactical officer, who was frantically checking scans. The officer looked up, his face pale. "Captain, they're telling the truth. I'm detecting 19 weapon platforms surrounding us. Their technology, it's more advanced than we thought. The truth hit Zorthax like cold water. These humans, these supposedly primitive creatures, had not only failed to be intimidated but were actually amused by the Empire's threats. And somehow they had built defensive technology that rivaled the Empire's without being detected. Your shields are impressive, Greg admitted, leaning back in his chair. But they can't stop that much firepower at once. Now, would you like to start over? Maybe we can talk like equals this time. Zorthax stared at the human's calm, smiling face. In that moment, he realized that the conquest of Earth would not be simple or quick. These humans were different from any species the Empire had encountered before. They didn't respond to fear as expected. In fact, they seemed to find it entertaining. Perhaps, Zorthax said slowly, we should discuss terms. Greg smiled wider. Excellent idea. And Captain? Next time you want to scare someone, don't use the speech from a movie we've all seen. Behind him, the command center erupted in laughter again. 3 days after the failed intimidation attempt, a smaller Ultharian ship entered Earth's atmosphere. This time, the aliens had asked for permission first. The ship landed on the large lawn in front of the United Nations building in New York. Hundreds of people gathered behind security barriers, trying to get a look at the visitors from space. Inside the United Nations, a special meeting room had been prepared. The room had a large round table with the UN symbol in the middle. Flags from all Earth nations lined the walls. Security guards stood at every door. Dr. Karen Johnson straightened her blue suit jacket and checked her notes one more time. As the newly appointed Director of Interspecies Relations, this would be her first major test. Next to her sat Major Frank Rodriguez in his dress uniform, serving as military advisor. His face showed no emotion, but his fingers tapped lightly on the table. Nervous? Karen asked quietly. Frank stopped tapping. Let's just say I'm glad we have those defense platforms in orbit. The doors opened, and Ambassador Vexnar of the Ultharian Empire walked in. He was shorter than Captain Zorthax but wore fancier clothes. His uniform was deep purple with gold trim and had so many decorations that it looked heavy. 4 human security guards followed him, looking uncomfortable but professional. Ambassador Vexnar, Karen said, standing up. Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Karen Johnson, and this is Major Frank Rodriguez. Vexnar bowed slightly. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. The Empire appreciates your hospitality. He said the last word as if it tasted strange in his mouth. They all sat down. Aides brought water and coffee for the humans, and a special blue drink for Vexnar that his staff had prepared. The Emperor was disappointed by our initial misunderstanding. Vexnar began, his voice smoother than Zorthax's had been. Captain Zorthax is a military man, not a diplomat. He lacks certain social graces. Karen nodded politely. We understand. First contact situations can be difficult. Indeed. Vexnar took a small sip of his blue drink. That's why I'm here, to offer a more beneficial arrangement. For the next 20 minutes, Vexnar talked about the Ultharian Empire. He described its wealth, its power, and its generous protection of other worlds. He showed holographic images of beautiful alien cities and happy-looking creatures living under Ultharian rule. The Emperor is willing to accept Earth into our family of worlds, Vexnar said, spreading his 4-fingered hands. We would provide protection, advanced technology, and access to galactic trade routes. In return, we would only require loyalty to the Empire and reasonable resource contributions. Karen and Frank exchanged looks. Ambassador, Karen said carefully, what exactly do you mean by resource contributions? Vexnar smiled, showing pointed teeth. Nothing excessive. Perhaps 30% of your planet's rare metals, 25% of your fossil fuels, and a small workforce contribution, say, 10 million humans to serve on Imperial projects. Frank's face darkened. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Without saying anything, he slid it across the table to Vexnar. The ambassador looked confused but picked up the tablet. As he read, his yellow eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. These are the technical specifications for your ship's propulsion system, Frank said flatly. Our engineers figured it out from scanning your vessel when it arrived. We could build one ourselves, but frankly, it's inefficient compared to our jump drive technology. Vexnar looked up sharply. Jump drive? That's impossible. That technology is theoretical even for us. Karen smiled. We've had working prototypes for almost 5 years. Your scanning technology must not be very advanced if you missed that. She reached for the tablet and tapped the screen a few times. Here are the energy readings from our defense platforms. As you can see, they're capable of generating 3 times the power your weapons can produce. Vexnar's gray skin seemed to pale. This can't be right. We've kept our true technological level hidden, Karen explained. Earth has been visited before, not always by friendly aliens. We learned to be cautious. Frank leaned forward. What puzzles me is why your empire thinks planets would willingly give up their resources for almost nothing in return. That's not protection, it's theft. The empire has always, Vexnar began, then stopped. For the first time, he seemed at a loss for words. We're not interested in becoming subjects, Karen said firmly. However, we would consider a mutually beneficial trade agreement between equals. Vexnar stared at them. These humans had not only refused the Empire's standard offers, they were now suggesting terms as if they were an established galactic power. What's worse, they were smiling slightly as if they found the whole situation amusing. Earth has much to offer, Karen continued. Our art, music, culture, and yes, some of our technology. We're interested in learning about other worlds and peoples. But we will not be ruled. The Emperor will not be pleased, Vexnar said, his voice lower now. Frank shrugged. Then perhaps the Emperor should visit Earth himself. We make excellent coffee. He raised his cup with a small smile. Vexnar looked from Karen to Frank and back again. These humans were nothing like he had expected. They showed no fear. They made jokes about things that should terrify them. And somehow they had technology that rivaled or even exceeded that of the Empire. I will convey your position to the Emperor, Vexnar said finally. But I must warn you, no world has ever refused to join the Empire and remained independent. Karen's smile didn't waver. There's a first time for everything, Ambassador. Earth has a long history of being the first. 1 month after the failed diplomatic meeting, a small unmarked ship entered Earth's atmosphere in the middle of the night. It landed in a forest outside Portland, Oregon. No alarms went off. No defense platforms fired. The ship's cloaking technology had worked perfectly. Agent Krelvor stepped out of the ship and breathed Earth air for the first time. It smelled strange. Too much oxygen for his liking. He checked his disguise in a small mirror. The synthetic skin covering his gray Ultharian features looked convincing. His 4 eyes had been hidden behind special contact lenses that made it appear he had only 2. His sharp teeth had been covered with dull, human-looking ones. Identity confirmed, said the ship's computer as it scanned him. DNA signature matches Earth human male, age 35, Caucasian. Passport and identification valid. Krelvor nodded. He was now John Smith, a tourist from Canada. His mission was simple: find out what humans feared most. The Empire needed a weakness, something to use against these strangely confident creatures. 3 days later, Krelvor sat in a bar called the Rusty Nail in downtown Portland. The place was dimly lit, with wooden tables and old pictures on the walls. Music played from speakers in the ceiling, some kind of human singing that Krelvor found unpleasant. He had spent days walking around the city, watching humans, but had learned little of value. He noticed a man sitting alone at the bar. The man had finished several drinks already and was starting on another. Perfect, thought Krelvor. Intoxicated humans were known to talk more freely. Krelvor moved to the seat next to the man and ordered a beer. He didn't like the taste, but it helped him blend in. Rough day? Krelvor asked, using one of the conversation starters he had learned. The man looked up. He had brown hair and a friendly face. You could say that, he replied with a small smile. Just work stuff. Nothing a few beers can't fix. He held out his hand. Steve Harper. John Smith, Krelvor said, shaking the man's hand carefully. Human bones were fragile compared to Ultharian ones. They talked about simple things at first. The weather, sports teams Krelvor pretended to know about, and the quality of the beer. Slowly, Krelvor guided the conversation toward his real interests. So, Krelvor said, trying to sound casual, what do you think about those aliens that showed up last month? The news has been full of it. Steve took a long drink. Man, that was something, wasn't it? Aliens actually exist. My dad always said they did, but nobody believed him. Are you worried? Krelvor asked. About what they might do? Steve laughed. Worried? Nah. Did you see their ship? It looked just like the one from Space Invaders 2, that movie from a few years back. I kept waiting for them to say, take me to your leader or something. But they threatened to destroy cities, Krelvor said, confused by the human's reaction. Yeah, they all say that, Steve replied, ordering another beer. That's like page 1 of the Alien Invasion Handbook. Krelvor leaned closer. So tell me, he asked, lowering his voice, what do you humans fear most? What would make your leaders surrender? Steve stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing. Buddy, that's a weird question. But okay, I'll play along. He took another drink. Have you seen our entertainment? We make movies about alien invasions for fun. We've been imagining ways to fight off space tyrants since before we could reach orbit. A woman at the next table overheard and joined in. My favorite was Independence Day, where they uploaded a computer virus to the alien mothership. She said, laughing. No way, said a man with glasses. The best was the day Earth fought back, when they used the aliens' own weapons against them. Soon, 5 or 6 people had joined their conversation. Each person had a favorite alien invasion story, each one more ridiculous than the last. Half our scientific advancements came from scientists trying to make sci-fi tech real. Steve continued, getting more excited. Our military strategists grew up playing games about resisting alien overlords. We've been mentally preparing for this scenario for generations. The whole group was laughing now, exchanging stories and jokes about aliens. Someone suggested that the real aliens probably just wanted Earth's coffee and pizza, which made everyone laugh harder. Krelvor felt cold sweat on his fake human skin. These people weren't afraid at all. They found the idea of alien invaders funny, almost childish. They had been imagining it for so long that when it actually happened, it wasn't scary. It was familiar. You know what's really strange? Steve said, finishing his beer. Those Ultharians didn't do their homework. If they had watched our movies or read our books, they would have known that showing up with a big ship and making threats never works. What would work then? Krelvor asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Steve thought for a moment. Honestly, probably just being nice. We're suckers for friendly aliens or bringing us cool technology. We love new gadgets. As the night went on, Krelvor learned nothing useful. No secret fears. No weaknesses to exploit. Just humans who had spent their entire history telling stories about the very situation his empire had created, and who had already imagined every possible way to win. On the Ultharian command ship, now stationed safely beyond the reach of Earth's defense platforms, a meeting was taking place. The room was large and dark, with only a single light shining on the central table. Around it sat the highest-ranking officials of the Ultharian presence in the Sol system. Admiral Zorthak sat at the head of the table, his yellow eyes narrowed as he listened to the reports. Captain Vexnar sat to his right, looking uncomfortable. 3 other Ultharian officers completed the group. The mood was tense. So you're telling me, Zorthak said slowly, that we have made no progress in finding a way to conquer these humans? Commander Dralkor, the Empire's top military strategist, stood up. He was older than the others, with pale gray skin and scars across his face from old battles. He pressed a button, and a hologram of Earth appeared above the table. The humans are unlike any species we've encountered before, Dralkor explained. His voice was rough but clear. They evolved as both predators and prey simultaneously. Their planet had many dangerous animals, So humans learned to be cautious. But they also hunted for food, so they learned to be aggressive when needed. The hologram changed to show scenes from human history, ancient battles with swords, modern wars with tanks and planes, and finally space missions and advanced technology. Their entire history is filled with constant warfare against each other. Drelkor continued. This forced them to develop technology quickly. They went from simple flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. They built nuclear weapons less than 200 years after discovering electricity. But why weren't they afraid of our threats? Asked a younger officer. Every other species surrenders when they see our power. Drelkor pressed another button. The hologram now showed humans in strange situations, soldiers joking while under fire, civilians making art during disasters, and people laughing in the face of danger. Humans use humor as a defense mechanism, Drelkor explained. When faced with stress or fear, they often respond with jokes or laughter. It helps them think clearly in dangerous situations. Agent Krelvor's report confirms this. He found humans in a bar laughing about our invasion attempts. That's bizarre, Vexnar muttered. But most important is this, Drelkor said, changing the hologram again. Now it showed human entertainment. Movies about alien invasions, books about space wars, and games where humans fought off attackers from other planets. For hundreds of years, humans have been telling stories about exactly the scenario we created, Drelkor said. They've imagined it in every possible way. When we arrived, it wasn't new or frightening to them, it was familiar. They had mentally rehearsed it countless times. Zorthax slammed his fist on the table. So you're saying they were prepared for us before we even arrived? That's impossible. Not prepared with weapons or defenses, Drelkor corrected. Prepared mentally. When humans laugh at a threat, they're not dismissing it. They're processing it in a way that allows them to function under extreme stress. It makes them more dangerous, not less. The room fell silent as the Ultharians considered this new information. There's more, Drelkor said quietly. Our technological advantage is much smaller than we thought. Their defenses are as good as ours, maybe better in some ways, and they have technology we don't, like their jump drives. Our only real advantage is in fleet size. Zorthax looked around the table. Options? Full attack, said the young officer immediately. Overwhelm them with numbers. Drelkor shook his head. They would destroy many of our ships before we could land. And based on their history even, if we won the initial battles, they would never stop fighting back. They have a concept called guerrilla warfare. They're very good at it. Blockade, suggested another officer. Cut them off from space until they surrender? They are mostly self-sufficient, Vexnar said. They could last years, maybe decades, and they would use that time to build more weapons. Zorthax turned to Drelkor. Your recommendation? Drelkor looked at the hologram of Earth, now showing humans going about their daily lives. There's only one logical option. We need to completely change our approach. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a large underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, NASA Director Olivia Clark and General Pete Martinez watched as scientists examined pieces of Ultharian technology. The room was filled with computers, strange devices, and busy people in lab coats. How's it going? Olivia asked, pushing her glasses up on her nose. She had been the head of NASA for only 2 years, but she had already seen things most humans never would. Dr. Bill Chen looked up from a piece of alien metal he was scanning. It's amazing, he said, his eyes bright with excitement. Their materials. Science is different from ours, but not necessarily better. Just different approaches to the same problems. General Martinez nodded. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a serious face, but even he couldn't hide his interest. Can we use any of it? Definitely, Bill said. Their communication technology is impressive, and their energy systems have some ideas we hadn't thought of. We're already working on combining their approaches with ours. Olivia smiled. So instead of conquering us, they've actually helped us advance? Exactly, Bill laughed. Best failed invasion ever. General Martinez's phone beeped. He checked it and frowned. The Ultharians are requesting another meeting, but this time they're sending someone called a cultural attaché instead of a military commander or diplomat. Cultural attaché? Olivia repeated. That's new. What do you think it means? Martinez put his phone away and actually smiled slightly. I think it means they're finally figuring out that they need to understand us, not just threaten us. And that's progress. 3 months after first contact, a small Ultharian vessel approached Earth. It was not a warship. It had no visible weapons. Its design was sleek and beautiful, with blue and silver colors, instead of the dark metal of military ships. Ultharian vessel requesting permission to land, said the radio operator at Earth Defense Command. They say they have someone called a cultural attaché on board. Admiral Greg Wilson nodded. Grant permission, but keep the defense platforms ready just in case. The ship landed at the United Nations Plaza just like Ambassador Vexnar's had, but this time fewer guards stood around. More regular people came to watch, taking pictures and videos with their phones. From the ship stepped a female Ultharian. She was smaller than the males humans had seen before, with lighter gray skin and only 2 visible scars on her face. She wore simple clothes, a blue robe with silver designs that seemed to move like water. I am Cultural Attaché Miralax, she said to the waiting humans. Her voice was softer than Zorthax's or Vexnar's. Thank you for allowing me to visit your world. In a modest conference room at the United Nations, Miralax met with UN Secretary-General Alan Williams and representatives from several Earth countries. No weapons were visible. Drinks and food from both planets sat on the table. The Empire has never encountered a species quite like humanity, Miralax said, looking at each human in turn. Your response to our traditional methods forced us to reconsider our approach. We now believe there is much we could learn from each other. Secretary-General Williams smiled. We would be delighted to establish peaceful relations, though I must warn you our sense of humor takes some getting used to. Miralax tilted her head. Yes, this concept of humor is particularly interesting to us. We have nothing similar in our culture. Then may I suggest, Williams said, that we begin our cultural exchange with something special? That evening, at a small theater in New York, the first interspecies comedy night took place. 20 Ultharians, including Miralax, sat in the audience. Human comedians performed on stage, telling jokes about everything from daily life to the recent alien visits. So an Ultharian walks into a bar, said one comedian, and the bartender says, Why the long face? No, seriously, your face is really long. The humans laughed. The Ultharians looked confused at first, but after several jokes, Miralax made a strange sound. It took the humans a moment to realize she was laughing. By the end of the night, even the Ultharians were chuckling at the jokes about their failed intimidation attempts. In the months that followed, Earth became the first planet to join the Ultharian Empire as an equal partner rather than a subject race. Human diplomats traveled to other worlds. Ultharian students came to Earth to study human culture and art. The humans' unique perspective changed how the Empire worked with other species. They taught the Ultharians that true strength isn't in causing fear, but in building relationships and finding common ground. And sometimes in being able to laugh together.